Good morning, students. Today we'll see a session on systematic literature review. So in this session, we will study the 5 W's and 1 H of literature review. So what are the 5 W's and 1 H? It is the who, what, why, where, when, and how of the literature review, the structure of literature review paper, and I'll give you a few tips and techniques for effective searching. Now, who does the literature review? So it's you, since you will be starting work on your project work. So reviewing the literature lets you see what came before and what did not work for other researchers. The more you know about your topic, the more effectively you can tackle your own research problem. So it all begins with the literature review. So when do you do the literature review? You will be doing it throughout your research work, throughout your project work. And the goal is to convey the ideas and results to the readers in the least possible time and space. So what is a literature review? You've already studied this, that it is a survey of a field of knowledge to find the best possible information in that field and provide it in an orderly and focused manner. So it's a critical recap of what has already been researched on a topic. It focuses on a specific topic of interest to you and includes a critical analysis of the relationship among different works and relating this research to your work. Say, for example, you're interested in the effects of social media, but that's a very broad topic that needs to be narrowed down. So you narrow it down to say a specific effect, say the meta-analysis of relationship between social media and the body image. So that's better, but it might still be a bit broad for this kind of research. So finally, you narrow it down further and settle on meta-analysis of body image issues in relation to social media among a specific group of people, say only Generation Z, and you formulate specific questions you want to investigate in the literature. So keep in mind that you might have to broaden or narrow your research question depending on how much research has been published on your topic. So moving on to the next W, why? So your research is a small piece in a jigsaw puzzle and does not exist in isolation. It is dependent on what others have done before and you will be contributing to the ongoing story. So therefore your reader needs to know about the complete jigsaw puzzle and not only about the shape and size of your piece. So in a literature review, you're contextualizing your work, describing the bigger picture that provides the background and creates the space or gap for your research. Again, moving on, why do we do literature review? To understand the current context and to give your reader a critical overview of what you found, to avoid duplication and to find out what's missing. So that is the gap that you have found in the literature. So these are the different benefits of doing literature review. It provides interpretation of existing literature. It indicates the current research in a particular field. It helps in calculating the impact of the latest information. It helps in finding research gaps that can be further explored. And it provides information for relevancy and coherency. And also it brings out the contradiction between the various thoughts. Moving on to the W, where. So remember, you've already studied the primary, secondary, and tertiary sources of research in detail. There is a wide variety of research databases to search for relevant studies. Some databases are specialized in specific fields. So try searching for databases specialized in your field to find out more relevant results. You can search in different journals and patents. We have the Indian Patent Office website, and you also have the WIPO, which is the International Patent Office website. Then you have the conference proceedings, periodicals, thesis, work in progress papers, different standards on data sheets, reviews, reference books, handbooks, textbooks, popular media, like blogs, and so on and so forth. There are some numbers which you've already studied, like the ISBN, the ISSN, the DOI. There's lots of information available on these. Kindly explore these for yourself. The ISBN has 13 digits and contains 5 types of identifying information, such as a prefix, registration group, it could be an individual country or territory, the registrant, publication, and checksum. Then the ISSNs help to identify serial publications, which are those that are published regularly in a sequence, such as magazines, journals, newspapers, and databases. They don't identify the content or certify its validity. The digital object identifier format is usually numerals and letters, including some punctuation. Also explore what is the H index, what is fog index. We'll see what is the impact factor in the coming slide. So here, if I want to calculate the impact factor for, say, a journal published in 2018, so then this impact factor of 2018 will be equal to number of times the articles published in 2016 and 17 were cited by index journals during 2018 divided by the total number of citable items like articles and reviews published by that journal in 2016 and 17. That means to find the impact factor of a journal for 2018, we are considering the information that was published and cited in 2016 and 2017, that is in the previous 2 years. So the impact factor of a journal for 2018 will be only published in 2019. And journals that are indexed by indexing services like PubMed, Google Scholar, Elsevier, Scopus are called index journals. Such journals are considered to reflect high quality content than journals that are not indexed. You've already studied the steps involved in a literature review. These are: search for relevant literature on your topic, then evaluate and select the resources, identify themes, debates, and gaps, outline your literature's review structure, and finally refine your literature review. So let us see each of these steps one by one into more depths. So the first step is searching for relevant literature. Search all the keywords and the synonyms, plurals, different word endings. For example, climate and climatic, acronyms, spelling variations, international terminology. Like heavy vehicles are called as trucks in US and lorry in UK. There could be spelling variations like color, COLOR or COLOUR. Or same is the case with behavior, BEHAVIOR and BEHAVIOUR. So it's important to consider all these variations so that you will be able to get more content based on what you're searching. Then check bibliographies for more sources. Use Boolean operators like and, or, not, asterisk, brackets, quotations. Say for example, you might want to search about the tech company Apple. So then you can give a search word as apple, not fruit. So this will give you all search results which are about the tech company Apple and not about the apple as a fruit. Remember, and will narrow the search while the Boolean operator or will broaden it. And also use synonyms. Then look out for recurring citations of books, authors, articles. And remember, whenever there is a high citation count, definitely that article is an influential one and you need to include it in your research. Now, how to search? Use relevant keywords. Use the advanced search with descriptors. On Google, it is available under the settings option. You can use backward chronological search. In this, we can usually go back and discover the entire background of a particular research area. Identify the latest relevant paper, look up each of the references listed, repeat to extend this process backwards. And in forward chronological search, first identify a very important paper in your area of interest, identify the publications that are citing this particular paper, and amongst those papers, you will find papers that are relevant to you. You can search for different information on different websites, and websites ending with .edu are educational institutions, with .org are the non-governmental organizations, .gov are the governmental organizations, .co and .com are commercial organizations, and ending with .in or .uk or .my are the country-specific codes. There are three search methods. One is protocol-driven search, one is snowballing, and one is personal knowledge. So the protocol-driven search is the manual searching in journals, databases. Snowballing emerges as the study keeps unfolding. As you keep searching for more content, you will keep pursuing the references of references. You will keep tracking the references. And in personal knowledge, you might go through the existing theories. You might accidentally come across a relevant paper through networking. You might come across a professor working in the same area of research that you are working on. So in this way, you'll be able to gather information through personal knowledge, through self and networking. Now coming to how to search. So this is the procedure for snowballing method of searching. So you first start with the literature search. You identify tentative start set of papers and evaluate the papers for inclusions and exclusions. The included papers enter the snowballing procedure. So snowballing can be either backward or it can be forward. Backward snowballing is from the reference lists, while forward snowballing is finding citations to the papers. So in each step, in both backward and forward snowballing, it is possible to decide to exclude or tentatively include a paper for further consideration. So the final inclusion of a paper should be done based on the full paper. That is, before the paper can be included in a new set of papers that goes into the snowballing procedure. So this procedure continues throughout your search. Let us see a video on how to read and comprehend scientific research articles.
With each other. Reading scientific articles helps you become part of the conversation of your discipline by learning about the research that has come before you. Textbooks, websites, and popular sources are useful starting places for general information, but for the most current scholarly information, there is no substitute for scientific articles. This tutorial will discuss how to read a scientific article, how to find the main points of the article, and how to take effective notes. Although it seems counterintuitive, the least effective way to read a scientific article is from start to finish. Instead, expert researchers skim articles to identify key findings. The structure of scientific articles is defined by several distinct sections. Most articles, like lab reports, are divided into 5 sections: the abstract, the introduction, the methods, the results, and the discussion. The most effective way to read an article is in this order: abstract, discussion, introduction, results, and methods. By going through articles in this order, you'll be able to quickly find the information you need to determine if the article will be useful. After you read each section, ask yourself whether the article is interesting and relevant enough to your research assignment, which will help you decide whether to continue reading it. Abstracts usually contain 4 kinds of information: the purpose or rationale of study, why they did it; the methodology, how they did it; results, what they found; and the conclusion, what it means. After reading the abstract, ask yourself, is this article worth reading, or should I move on to another one? The discussion section provides a clear answer to the question posed in the introduction and explains how their results support their conclusions. Once you have read this section, think about whether you understand and believe the author's claims. Introductions serve 2 purposes: stimulating interest in the subject and putting the article in a larger context. Generally, introductions do this by leading readers from the general, what is already known about the topic, to the specific, what is not yet known, to the focused question the authors are asking. Thus, authors describe previous work and how their work relates to it. Before moving on to the next section, ask, why did the researchers do this study? And, does the research question match up with the conclusions I read in the discussion? The results section states what the authors found and key data, often shown in figures or tables. Before moving on to the next section, ask whether the data collected is appropriate to answer the research question and if the data support the conclusions. The methods section tells the reader what experiments were done to answer the question stated in the introduction. Methods can be difficult to read for students because of the technical language and a level of detail sufficient for another trained scientist to repeat the experiments. However, you can more fully understand the design of the experiments and evaluate their validity by reading the methods section carefully. While you are reading through the article, also distinguish the author's main points. It can be difficult to distinguish between the main point and less relevant subpoints. Key places to look for main points include the article's title, the abstract, keywords, the figure and table titles, and the first sentence or last couple of sentences in the introduction section. Within the article, some useful words to clue you in on the author's main points include: we hypothesize that, we propose, we introduce. Another important part of reading and comprehending scientific articles is taking notes. Effective note-taking will save you time and help you clarify your thoughts. Creating a standard template for taking notes will help you organize your research, enable you to make quick comparisons, and will save you time rereading articles. Reading scientific articles is challenging, but reading them in A, D, I, R, M order, correctly identifying the author's main points, and taking effective notes will save you time and make your research easier. If you have how to read and comprehend.
Moving on, there are a number of websites which provide a number of technical papers like IEEE Explore, Springer, Elsevier, JSTOR, EBSCO, InSpec, Shodhganga, Taylor and Francis, Sightseer, many UGC approved journals. You can search for journals related to your field of research. Journals indexed by Scopus, Science Direct, Google Scholar, ResearchGate, DOAJ, that's the Directory of Open Access Journals, PubMed, Medline, the Institution of Engineering and Technology Journals, JURN, Paperity, Web of Science, ProQuest, Ethos, IET journals, and of course, many ebooks are available on the internet, and plus our institute library for hard copies of books and journals that we have subscribed to. Now let's learn about the CRAP test. CRAP stands for currency, relevancy, authority, accuracy, and purpose. This CRAP test was developed by the California State University. Currency relates to the timeliness of the resources. When was the information published or posted? Has the information been revised or updated? Is it important to have current information, or will older sources work as well? Are all the links given are working? Relevance relates to the importance of the information to you. Does the information relate to your research or answer your question? Is the information at an appropriate level, that is not too simple or too advanced for your needs? Have you looked at a range of other sources? So this will help you decide whether the source you are using is relevant. And are you comfortable citing this as a reputable source for your research paper? Coming to authority. This relates to the source of information, like who is the author, what are the author's credentials, is the source trustworthy or qualified to write on the subject, is their contact information available? If it's a website, what does the URL say about the source? Then accuracy relates to the reliability of the source. Where does the information come from? Is the information supported by correct evidence? Can you verify any of the information in another reliable source? Does the language or tone seem balanced, unbiased, and free from errors? And finally, the purpose. Purpose relates to the reason the information exists, whether it is for information, whether it's an argument, for teaching, selling, entertaining, or persuading. Is the purpose clear and the point of view impartial, or are there any biases? Is the information fact, opinion, or propaganda? So it's important to do this CRAP test when you are deciding on any of the papers that you will be referring to. Another issue is, when does one stop searching? So for this, use the Pareto principle. So this is the 80-20 principle. Finding the same citations over and over again in your search results on new articles presenting concepts or findings very similar to what you have already uncovered suggests that it may be time to stop. An initial focused effort of 3 to 5 hours of proper searching may yield about 80% of all relevant citations that can reasonably be located using good techniques in the proper sources. Spending another 10 to 20 hours on the search may yield more relevant citations, but possibly only another 5 to 10%. And remember, you can never say that your research is 100% complete because that's the very nature of research. So irrespective of the amount of search and amount of time spent, you can never say that your research is 100% complete. The next step is evaluating and then selecting the resources. So these are the kinds of questions that you ask about each source. What question is it addressing? What are its key concepts, theories, methods, its results and conclusions? How does it fit in with other research and what are its key insights and arguments? One of the most important things to consider is the quality of research you are looking at. If the author acknowledges any particular strengths or weaknesses, pay attention to these. But additionally, evaluate the research for yourself. Are there any problems with the research that the author doesn't notice or acknowledge? Is there any pattern to which approaches tend to be most successful? So it's very important that you evaluate the resources properly. Then identify themes, debates, and gaps. As you read, identify the connections between the different sources like relationships, commonalities, confirmations, gaps, inconsistencies between different studies. So this way you can organize your literature review and arguments and structure it a lot better. Also take down notes in whichever format that suits you. Either maybe it's annotating or making mind maps or concept maps or making or like notes the way you take them in class, and paraphrase and summarize key points from each source that you read. Keep a note of the source information for your references. Full information on each study, including the author's name, the title of the paper, the journal in which it was published, and the year of publication. Also make a note of the page numbers because you will require these for your citations. Keeping effective notes at this stage will make the writing process a lot much more smoother for your report 2 at the end of your final semester. Now coming back to the example that we were talking about. Let's say we are reviewing the literature on the meta-analysis of the relationship between social media and body image issues. We may notice that the trend that most of the research in this area is focused on only young women. We also know that interest in the visual aspects of social media is increasing over time. However, we also see that relatively little research has been done into highly visual platforms like Instagram. So this represents a noteworthy research gap. There is clear interest in a particular phenomenon, but insufficient research on one of the key platforms where this phenomenon plays out. So this is how you go about finding gaps in the literature that you're reading. Now coming to things to look for. You look out for trends and patterns, themes, pivotal publications, debates, conflicts and contradictions and gaps. When you encounter disagreements between different scholars, consider whether the issue they disagree on seems resolved or merits further investigation. When you encounter a particular article or book that is frequently cited, you can assume it's a pivotal publication for this subject. Do researchers consider it authoritative or question its value? To identify gaps in the research, look at what researchers suggest as possible areas for further research or consider where different sources disagree. Could a different approach be taken to explain this apparent contradiction? Keep reading the papers and you will find many parameters that you can look out for based on the field of your study. There could be location of the study, the duration of the study, the processes involved, the data collection methods that were used, what were the features that were extracted from the data, what was the sample size, what were the methods used in the analysis, what was the accuracy, the efficiency or the error that was the outcome, what were the advantages and disadvantages, what were the applications, what were the sources, what are the recommendations of the authors, what is the risk analysis done, what were the testing methods used, what numerical techniques or mathematical models or design procedures used, what were the algorithms, were any assumptions made by the authors, what are the effects of changes in the parameters, what are the different data analysis procedures, were different architectures involved, were any environmental parameters taken into consideration, what was the software hardware used, what were the accounting techniques, what are the simulation models used. You can, and the list can go on. So you can do a comparative analysis of these techniques for your literature review. Now coming to the next step, that is outlining your literature review structure. So this can be done in different ways. It can be chronological, thematic, methodological, or theoretical. A chronological approach involves tracing the development of your topic over time. So try to avoid just listing studies in chronological order. Rather, identify trends and turning points and explain how different studies fit into the timeline. If you take a thematic approach, you'll organize your review based on the selection of themes within your topic, showing how each theme has been treated by different researchers. The methodological approach may be appropriate if your topic has been approached with a variety of methods. You can trace how these different methods have been applied and what were the conclusions that emerged from these different approaches. You can do something similar with a theoretical structure, showing how different theoretical approaches have been applied. Let us see a video on how to create concept maps.
This brief tutorial will demonstrate how to create a concept map. Often topics start out very broadly. That's not bad, in fact, it's pretty normal. But taking a big topic, like sustainability, and trying to create a 5, 10, or even 20-page paper out of your topic can be nearly impossible. For most topics, there's just too much to talk about. Not to mention, some of the most reliable, useful resources, articles from scholarly journals, tend to focus on very specific elements of a topic. So obviously, not considering what specific elements of a broad concept you want to focus on can lead to some difficulty in your research. Now, there are several ways to break a larger idea into manageable bits that you can then use to zero in on your topic. Concept mapping is one of our favorites. To make a concept map, you need two things: something to write on and something to write with. You can use online applications like bubble.us, but we prefer getting our hands dirty. To start, write down your topic, the broad one. It doesn't matter what it is, how vague or how specific. You can make a concept map about anything. Once you've written your topic in the center of the page, start making some connections. You can probably break your topic into more specific ideas, categories, or subtopics. What these will be is completely up to you. Sometimes they're large developed thoughts, other times just single words. Whatever they are, you're going to connect each one to your topic with a line, so that these subtopics branch off from the general concept. Once these are established, more specific ideas and examples can be added to each subtopic. As you can see from our example, some subtopics might be more interesting to you, or produce more examples and ideas. This can help you zero in on an area of your topic to focus on for your assignment. In our current concept map, soil issues in sustainable agriculture has come to the forefront. These subtopics and examples can form the basis for your research question, as we've shown here with the example of: what are soil issues that need to be addressed by sustainable agriculture? As well as forming a research question, the subtopics and examples within your concept map can be used as keywords for a search in Lion Search or any of the library's other databases. If you're not certain how to use the library's data,
This is how you use concept maps. So together as a group, you all can develop concept maps. So lots of questions can come up. Now coming to the different approaches for your literature review, there can be an approach called as zooming in or finding intersections or patchworking or funneling. In zooming in, you are first having a broader picture, you're going into further depth and then zooming into your research question. Or you may find intersections or commonalities or differences between the different approaches, or maybe patchworking or funneling. Funneling again works from broad to narrow approach, starting by scoping background literature related to your general topic area rather than precise research question, and then moving on to discussing literature closer to what you're doing but not matched directly and dealing with these sources in more detail. Finally, critically analyzing the research pertinent to your research question and looking a few key papers in much more detail. You've already studied the IMRAD model, wherein the introduction covers the why of the literature or the research, the methods consider how, the results consider what, and the discussion considers so what. You have seen that more or less the contents of any technical paper consist of the title, the abstract, the introduction, methods, results, and discussion, and the rest of the document, which we consider of the author affiliation, then the keywords, the conclusion, the references, and so on. But this is not the order of writing. The order of writing is going to be, you first write the methods, then the results and analysis, then the introduction, then discussion, finally the abstract based on what you have done, and then you finalize a suitable title and then complete the rest of the document, that is the keywords, the conclusion, and the references. And what should be the contents? The abstract can be about 150 to 200 words. Keywords can be about 2 to 5. Limit the introduction to more or less than 25% of the document length. Implementation about 30% of the document length. Results and discussion about 30% of the document length. And conclusion about 10% of the document length. When you're writing a review paper, it majorly consists of introduction, body, and conclusion. So choose the framework that suits your topic the best and try to draw up a rough outline of your structure. If you like, you can even combine different structures, for example, covering each theme in turn, but taking a chronological approach within each theme. Your introduction establishes the purpose of the review, the body directly discusses the literature, and the conclusion summarizes the key findings of the review. The exact content of each part will vary according to whether you are writing it as a standalone paper or part of a longer text. Depending on the length of your literature review, the body may be divided into sections with their own subheadings or just into different paragraphs. So engage with sources in a critical way. Don't just restate the argument or conclusion of each study. Make sure that you interpret them, evaluate their usefulness, synthesize different sources to create a coherent picture of the literature as a whole. Structure your paragraphs appropriately as you would in any paper. See that there is a proper logical flow to the content. Use a topic sentence to introduce each paragraph and make appropriate transitions between the different topics. Since this is where you discuss the literature directly, it's important to include proper citations for each source wherever you quote or paraphrase them. The conclusion looks a bit different depending on the context. In a standalone paper, in a standalone paper, this is the end of the paper, and as such, your goal here is to discuss the overall implications of your findings and make suggestions for future research on the basis of the gaps and trends that you have identified. And if it is a part of a longer paper, the point here is to state how the literature review has informed the approach you will take to the main part of your research and what gaps that research intends to address. And the final step is refining your literature review. Keep rereading, revising, and refining. Check for grammar and punctuation. Check for especially the typos, overuse of passive voice, repetitive phrasing, informal language, punctuation and grammar. And remember, no plagiarism. These are a few tips. Definitely ensure the 3 C's, that is be clear, concise, and comprehensible. The 3 R's, read, recall, and review. Ensure that there is a logical flow to your content. Add digital object identifiers if they are available, since that makes accessing the references easy. Ensure that the references in the text are mentioned in your list. Do not falsify data to prove a point. Follow all the author guidelines and use the templates provided, because each journal or each conference may have their own templates. And use document preparation systems like LaTeX. Notion is a wonderful app for organizing your content. Readwise also is a helpful app. This is one paper which is doing a good literature review for deep learning for brain tumor segmentation. Questions to ask for a literature review. So this is more or less a summary of what questions need to be addressed in your literature review. Like what is the topic of interest? What are the origins and definitions of the topic? What are the major issues and debates about the topic? What are the key sources, key concepts, models, perspectives? What are the main questions and problems addressed? How is the knowledge structured and organized? How have these approaches increased your understanding and knowledge? You can use the literature review tool provided to you. So literature tools can be something like this. So as Richard Bach says, remember, a professional writer is an amateur who did not quit. So always remember, any professional is always an amateur at the beginning. So start working on your paper, and I'm sure you will have a sense of pride in your work when you see it published. And write like it matters, and it will definitely matter. Thank you so much.